Hey there, let's go ahead and continue just learning about ourselves, our protective responses, and ultimately how we're designed to heal as well. So we're going to talk about our emotional system, kind of like the operating system on a computer, our brains, our personalities, just the way that we're wired and designed allows us to navigate life as well as we possibly can. And understanding ourselves in this way can also provide lots of healing opportunities as well. So in the area of emotional health, relationships with others, leadership, we often focus on one area, which is our thought life or our mindset. This is so good. This is necessary. Yes, go to therapy. Yes, take the leadership courses. Yes, take your thoughts captive. All those things. I want to hear, make sure you hear that up front. Yes, 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 yes. But there are times in our lives where it's like, okay, I'm doing all of that, but I'm still feeling stuck and I don't know what's happening. So that's when it's time to address nervous system health, which we talked about previously. And also now we're going to talk about like deeper emotional healing. So we're really addressing then all these different aspects of ourselves, our mindset, our inner world, our body and nervous system. And I always like to add in this swirl around that all-encompassing fact that we are spiritual and we can bring our spirituality into all of the ways that we can heal. So part of my story is that thought life and leadership. I was the leadership person. I read the books. If I was at a training and someone started talking to me about nervous system health and emotional healing, I would have been like, move this person along. Like, where's the leadership? Where's the people development, systems development, and how can we go further, faster? That was me. But I got to a point where I had to hit some walls and make some self-discoveries and started with therapy and really some inner healing. So getting to some of the deeper places, and had to add in nervous system healing, understanding that we're spirit, soul, and body. So how do we address what's happening in the body and the nervous system? And still there was something missing. So maybe this is you. I needed to understand the brain, trauma, and how parts of our personality function in different ways to keep us safe. And also how to navigate those protective responses in order to truly and deeply heal. I hear lots of people that come to me and they're like, I worked with this person, or this person told me, oh, that should be done. Like that shouldn't be a thing for you anymore because we took care of that. And that was part of my story too. But there's this misunderstanding of how we've been designed to protect ourselves and how we need to release that. So join me as we continue on this understanding of ourselves. So for me, discovering internal family systems was huge, and I now weave it into everything I do with my clients. So internal family systems was developed by Dr. Richard Schwartz, highly researched form of psychotherapy that works with that protective system that's brought on by stressors or trauma. Non-shaming and non-bypassing. So what that means is a lot of times we will ourselves to choose to behave or think certain ways, and there's a lot of shame that drives that. And so this is very non-shaming, very compassionate form of healing. And we're not just pushing things away. So I'm not one of those coaches that's like, oh, that's your thing. You just need to like set that aside and move forward. Because so often that thing that gets pushed away, it keeps getting louder and louder and louder. And there's also this understanding of how our brains and our bodies are connected in this way. So there's a lot of body-based healing and somatic healing that happens throughout this process. So being trauma informed in doing this inner work is absolutely huge. So again, trauma being anything that feels too big or too overwhelming for the nervous system, or maybe there's a lack, there's not enough. So when that happens, that information is stored in the body, in the brain, in the nervous system, really like a time capsule. So when we get to these points with clients where it's like, oh, that thing that happened in second grade. Everyone has a thing that happened in second grade. It makes sense developmentally what's happening and relationally what's happening. Second grade, middle school, those things usually come up. And people will be like, oh, I totally forgot about that, or I didn't think that impacted me like it did. But that information is stored away in the brain like it's in a time capsule. So when we get triggered, I'm sure you can think of times that you're like, oh, I just got triggered, right? That what's happened is that old information that has been stuck and stored is activated. So you might get to a point, and I had a time in my life not too long ago where I had something really hard happen. And I was like, why do I feel like I'm an angry, shut down 16-year-old again? That's because what was happening in my world felt very familiar, felt similar to what was going on in my world when I was 16. So being able to understand, oh, that's not actually me. That's a part of me that is being poked at. And so when we open and are able to access those parts of the brain, the system, and parts of our heart, then that's where a lot of that deeper, final, and lasting healing happens. So when we are triggered that way, those parts of younger parts of our brain and personality are activated or triggered, then that results in this inner conflict or inner turmoil, I call it. And it can impact relationships with those around us. So here's an example of what that can look like. This is you. This is the you that you were truly designed to be. This is the you that you know is deep within there, right? Like the gold that's in you. But what has happened often over time is enough life stuff has happened that these protective responses, protective parts of our personality come forward and step forward. So maybe you can think of ways that there maybe been like manager type proactive responses. These are the things like, I'm going to do the tasks. I'm going to stay on top of things. I'm going to like get the stuff done, right? It's proactive. It's moving you to something. Firefighter protective responses are different. They're more reactive. And this is things like addictions, anger, just like shutting down. I'm just going to go scroll on social media because I can't even think about this anymore. I don't even want to feel this anymore. But ultimately, those protective responses are helping us avoid really feeling the things that and the information that's being stored by these like exiled, they call it, pushed away hurts or wounds, usually from a younger age. So what needs to happen then is we need to have ways that we can navigate these protective responses so they can settle back a little bit. That you, that true you that you know is deep in you really gets to step forward, and all those hurts, those wounds, those burdens get to finally be released. So that's the process. We need to release that burden or that story. And also the physical pain that's often associated with that. Release that inner turmoil and ultimately released into freedom. So what does that look like? And we're just going to do a little guided exercise here. This isn't going to be the whole IFS process. Of course, working one-on-one is an ideal way to go about that, but we're just going to gather information. And so we're going to do a little bit of like an internal reflection. So I just want you to get to a place where you're quiet and calm, maybe taking a couple deep breaths. And we're not going to go too deep with this. We're just gathering information. We're just going to see maybe what's under the surface a little bit as far as maybe thoughts and emotions and what that might be connected to, and just learning information and new ways to understand yourself. So maybe it's even helpful to close your eyes, put your hand over your heart. Relax a little bit inside. I just want you to be aware of any thoughts that kind of come to the surface here. Any thoughts that just kind of come up into your mind and into your heart. When this happens, we're not going to push anything away like, oh, that's silly, that shouldn't be there. We're just going to be aware. Just be aware. So any thoughts? Any feelings that you're having or emotions? We don't ever want anything to overwhelm our system. So just the right amount of awareness of any emotions that might just be trying to get your attention here. Any sensations in your body that you notice. Maybe there's even like a picture in your imagination, a memory, or an age. Again, we're not going to go through a whole big healing process, but I just want you to see out of those things, if there's one of those things that kind of like what I call bubbles to the surface, one that feels a little bit more important to pay attention to, let's go ahead and really focus on that as long as that feels comfortable for you. I just want you to check and see, is there anything that you need to know or understand or do connected to what you're experiencing? And if you've gathered a little bit of information there, just check and see, how do you respond to that? Is there a response of trying to push that away or criticize? Let's just ask that to step back. Or do you happen to be able to experience that from a place of calm, compassion, clarity, being truly connected in your heart and your mind? Just allowing any compassion that you might feel to grow a little bit. See if that protective response that came up initially can relax a little bit inside. It's a little more clarity, a little more space inside for that true you, that part of you, or that fullness of who you have been created to be, to really step forward and be able to lead the way. Go ahead and even jot down any notes that you feel like you need to remember for later. Take a couple more deep breaths and then we'll just kind of move on here. So gathering information is super important. That's kind of the first phase of this healing. And then there's like, okay, let's go to that place together in a place of safety and really allow that deep, deep foundational healing to happen. What happens then is there's not only that physical response, but there's a rewiring, an unwiring and a rewiring that happens within your brain. So it really addresses spirit, soul, and body. So Why I'm not a purist, like why don't I just do nervous system work or just do this emotional work? For me, it's a both and approach, because what I found is we might be doing nervous system work, and it's great, but then we hit a spot or a barrier, and then it's time to switch to the emotional work. Or we might go the other way and we're doing the emotional stuff and we've hit a wall here. And oh, like what we're actually experiencing is more based on what's happening in the body. So as I began to work with clients and as we've kind of developed this relationship together, they actually come to me and start to learn like, oh, what I'm experiencing is more like I'm experiencing it more in my body. Let's start with the nervous system work. Or yeah, this is purely emotional and really impacting my thoughts and all of that. Let's go that direction. So ultimately, yes, work with doctors, health providers, take necessary steps to take care of yourself. Nutrition, movement, sleep is so huge. Address your thought life and belief patterns. All of those things are so important. And also heal and strengthen your nervous system and heal at the deepest emotional levels. Here's why healing at those deeper emotional levels is so important, because when we can heal the gooey parts, the gooey center, then that doesn't trigger our limbic system and doesn't trigger our nervous system as much. So as we heal those deeper emotional places, we don't have to do as much nervous system work. And as we do the nervous system work and heal those emotional places, all that really good thought life work that we're doing, it's like a launching pad that we get to like really soar with that. So release the story and burden, heal the body and emotions. So if this is of interest for you and you want to learn more, like just pay attention, watch for those protective responses. Is it more of like a proactive, I got to get this done and take care of this? Or is it a reactive, like, I don't want to feel this anymore, I just got to shut this down? And also make sure to give yourself the same amount of compassion and grace that you would give others. Watch for ways that as you're learning more about yourself in this emotional operating system that we have, that your heart starts to open, soften, and ultimately you're healing. And if you need to, go ahead and reach out for guidance and learning how to navigate those emotional protective responses to open up and get to that time capsule that's often locked in our brain, our nervous systems, and our hearts, to be able to release those burdens and those wounds and finally heal. Take care of yourself.